power. Y'all listening to me? Are you understanding that the Spirit of the living God has called you for this season? Matthew 4:3-4 says this. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word. Do you know why the enemy has fought so hard to keep you from making declarations on a daily basis? Every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God I'm telling you, we have so much power. You have heard the word for years. It's just now we need to ask God to give us revelation how to walk by faith. Faith is what? What is faith? I know nobody wants to probably just holler it out. According to Hebrews 11:1, what is faith? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Now faith is. The issue in the church is this. The conditioning of the mind to always need to see something with the natural eye instead of the supernatural eye. The eye of faith. Our faith always has to look into the realm of the unseen, in the spirit realm. Our faith doesn't look in the natural realm. Your other eyes do. Our faith always sees victory that lies in the covenant rights in the unseen realm with God. It's very hard for people, it seems like. I mean, after 32 years of teaching on faith and the Word of the living God, I'm still to the point that we probably need an 8-year program on what is faith and how to walk by it. Well, we need a graduate degree in it, don't we? Now, don't get mad at me. I'm just saying, are you to the point that you sense that every time the enemy comes, instantly you win the battle? I am. I just got that this morning. Now listen to me. Listen to me. If you got the Word of God inside of you, you got the Word in you, haven't you? You know Jesus, don't you? He's a living Word. He said the Word became flesh and dwelt among. He is the living Word. He said, I believe it's in Hebrews there, he said, I'm going to speak to you by the living Word. This is going to be a season that's going to turn your thinking upside down. This is going to be a thing that you're going to have to say, look, I'm going to let my mind be changed through the Word of the living God and the presence of God. I'm not thinking religiously anymore. I'm thinking according to the Word of God. I'm going to see myself walking in victory every minute, every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I do not care what my neighbor thinks. I do not care what somebody else thinks. I'm going to make declarations and declare from the housetop, the victory is already mine. And then we're driving home. And something happens. And after the barrage of words that come out, we remember what the pastor said. But it's a learning process. It's a learning process, isn't it? If you're a God pleaser, if you keep coming back with your words to God, letting your ear gate hear the word, He will always deliver you from your situation. I was thinking about this. I'm studying on a message for Sunday about the difference between Saul and David. Saul was a man pleaser. David was a God pleaser. And I want to preach to this little crowd right here for a few minutes. Well, because y'all just 2 or 3 years younger than the rest of us. I've been meditating on this ever since me and Justin talked the other day. David was a teenage boy with no youth group, no young mentors, by himself, honoring his father to do the Father's will. And all of a sudden, he came down taking a few cheese sandwiches, some Branson pickle, potato chips down to his brother at one of the most major wars up to that time. Now listen to me. There's nothing wrong with good youth groups. There's nothing, but let me tell you, that's not your answer. You got to get an answer somewhere else. Now listen. Your answer comes in obedience to the Father. He said, now, I'm going to do and walk in obedience. I'm going to take care of these sheep not because I want to, not because it's fun, not because it's cool out here, not because I love the smell of sheep, not because that they're really hard and ornery to deal with, not because of all those things, not because I like to be by myself, but because my Father asked me to. And because he was willing to submit and walk in the authority his Father gave him, when the lion came, he tore his throat out and saved the sheep and didn't lose one. When the bear came, faith came up on the inside of him. He was able to protect what the Father had given him. And the difference between him and Saul, he had a personal encounter with the true and living God and was willing to walk in obedience to what he wanted. It was so great that even the king of the land that had been anointed king had to call the shepherd boy in with his heart to drive the evil spirits away from the king. And the king had everybody around him. The king had all the wives he wanted. The kings had all the fellowship he wanted. The kings had all the gold he wanted. The king had all the food he wanted. He never had to be a day in his life, and he was so lonely he had to call the very one he was going to try to kill to play the harp, to get a peace for him. David understood his authority, and he understood it by walking in obedience to what the Father wanted. I've been thinking about this. How do we save our young generation? We better get focused back on the Father. And we better encourage fathers to be fathers. We better encourage men in the home to rise up and take spiritual charge and understanding in a godly manner. Because if you don't, you'll have a bunch of Sauls in your house. But if you do, you got a promise of raising up Davids that will obey the Father in the midst, and he will not crumble under pressure. He won't run back to Daddy when his brothers ridicule him and say, you're showing off. You're just making some kind of fuss here. Who do you think you are? He said, let me go ask somebody else about this giant. He didn't run and hide his head in a hole with an offense that he took because his brothers wanted to run him off and then the other soldiers wanted to run him off. It didn't stop his mission in life. He said, you can't make me take offense. I am on a mission.